To unite our species. The words came out as nothing more than a joke, a playful challenge in the midst of the stiff atmosphere around him. Marcus glanced at him with wide eyes, but it was already too late. The entire group of Jaron delegates paused, their gazes locking onto Aaron. Zara herself stopped in her tracks. There was an eerie silence as everyone waited for her reaction. Aaron, his face turning a bit red, began to rethink his decision. Surely, she would just ignore him and continue walking. After all, who would take a comment like that seriously? But Zara didn't just ignore him. Her gaze, cool and piercing, shifted from the crowd and landed directly on Aaron. The silence seemed to stretch for what felt like forever. Then, much to everyone's shock, Zara took a step forward. The light from the overhead lamps seemed to catch her features in a new way, making her appear even more ethereal than before. "I accept," Zara said, her voice deep and unwavering. The words fell on Aaron like a hammer, leaving him momentarily speechless. The crowd around them buzzed with confusion, whispers spreading like wildfire. Had she misunderstood the joke? Surely she hadn't taken him seriously, right? Zara's expression remained unchanged as she locked eyes with Aaron.
"I accept your offer. As per Jaron tradition, it is a gesture of unity."
"And I see no reason why it cannot begin here, with you." Aaron's heart skipped a beat.
"Wait, what?" he stammered. He thought he must have misheard her.
I didn't mean it seriously. It was just a joke." The alien woman didn't waver. "In our culture," she explained, her voice calm but firm, "such offers are never made lightly. I see it as an opportunity for peace and understanding." Marcus, who had been standing beside Aaron, leaned in and whispered, "You're in trouble now, buddy." Aaron's mind raced. He had no idea what he had just gotten himself into. What kind of culture accepted a random joke as an official proposal? He glanced nervously at Zara, who stood like a rock, not at all fazed by the growing confusion around them. The crowd had grown quiet now, all eyes trained on Aaron and Zara. It was as if time had stopped, the entire spaceport holding its collective breath. Aaron, realizing that his joke had just become something much more serious, took a deep breath. The situation had turned awkward beyond belief. I didn't know," he started, trying to explain himself, but the words didn't come out right. He couldn't believe he had gotten himself into this mess. Zara nodded once, her gaze never leaving him. "It is not for you to know, only for us to see where this journey leads." Then she turned to the other members of her delegation, giving a subtle signal. Without a word, they moved forward as if nothing had happened, as if the proposal were as natural as any other exchange. Aaron stood frozen in place, his mouth dry. The moment passed, but the weight of what had just occurred hung over him like a cloud. Marcus couldn't stop laughing at the absurdity of it all. "You're going to have to figure this out, my friend," he said with a grin. "You've just become part of alien history." Aaron barely slept that night. The events at the spaceport were still playing in his mind, over and over again. He couldn't stop thinking about Zara's calm acceptance of his offhand joke. He had intended it to be nothing more than a humorous comment to break the tension in the air, but it had turned into something much more. Something serious. He lay on his bed in the small quarters provided to the human delegation, staring up at the ceiling. His thoughts kept drifting back to Zara's face, her blue skin, her cold, confident eyes. It was as if she had known exactly what she was doing when she accepted his proposal. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that he didn't know what any of it meant. What did it mean for their cultures? And what did it mean for him? He had to know more. The encounter had left him feeling uneasy, but also strangely intrigued. Aaron wasn't the type to shy away from a challenge, and he certainly wasn't the kind of person to let an awkward moment go unanswered. He needed to understand this alien culture, and, maybe more importantly, he needed to understand why Zara had accepted him so readily. The next day, he gathered his things and made his way to the meeting chamber. The Jaron delegation had already arrived, standing in perfect formation near the far side of the room. The atmosphere was formal and tense, filled with the weight of diplomacy and protocol. The humans were meant to discuss trade agreements and peace accords, but Aaron's mind wasn't focused on those topics at the moment. As he entered the room, his gaze immediately found Zara. She was standing tall, speaking with another delegate. Her posture was flawless, as it had been the day before, and she exuded an aura of authority and poise that made everyone around her stand at attention. Aaron felt a nervous tightness in his chest as he approached her, his earlier feelings of embarrassment resurfacing. Zara turned as she heard him approach. There was no sign of surprise on her face, no hint of humor or mockery. Instead, she regarded him with a calm, almost knowing expression. Aaron opened his mouth to speak, but couldn't find the right words. He felt ridiculous, like a child caught in a lie.
"Good morning, Aaron," Zara said, her voice as steady as ever. It was a greeting, but it was also a reminder of what had happened the day before.
Aaron stood there, awkwardly shifting his weight. I didn't mean what I said yesterday. It was just a joke. I don't even know what I was thinking. It was a dumb thing to say.
Zara nodded, her gaze still steady and unwavering. "I understand."
Your intentions were not meant to be serious. She paused, allowing the words to hang in the air for a moment before continuing. But, in my culture, when such an offer is made, it is not simply a joke. It is a gesture of unity and respect.
"I took your words at face value." Aaron blinked, trying to process her explanation.
But why? He asked, his voice quieter now. Why would you accept something like that from me? It was ridiculous. I didn't think you would even notice. Zara's eyes softened, just slightly. Because, Aaron, your offer was not as meaningless as you believe. In the Giron tradition, when two people from different worlds come together in such a way, it marks the beginning of a bond that transcends the barriers of our individual cultures and backgrounds. Aaron shook his head, still trying to wrap his mind around it all. I'm just a soldier.
I don't have anything to offer you. Or your people.
I didn't mean for this to go any further. This was just a misunderstanding. Zara stepped closer, her presence overwhelming. Sometimes, Aaron, misunderstandings lead to the most profound changes. Perhaps this is our chance to learn something new. Perhaps this is your opportunity to see beyond the surface of what you know and understand, that there is more to our worlds than meets the eye. Her words struck him harder than he had expected. Was she suggesting that there was something deeper in his foolish comment? That somehow his unintentional joke could be the catalyst for something bigger than he could understand? It felt absurd. He didn't know what to say next. Part of him still wanted to laugh it off, to pretend that this whole situation hadn't happened. But another part of him knew it was too late.
There was no going back from this. Why don't you join me for a walk, Aaron? Zara asked, sensing his inner conflict.
Let's talk. Aaron hesitated, but then nodded, figuring that a conversation with her might help him understand what was going on. The two of them left the meeting room together, walking down the long, sterile halls of the human embassy on the alien planet. The contrast between their steps, the heavy, awkward steps of a human soldier and the graceful, sure-footed steps of Zara, could not have been more different. As they walked, Zara spoke of her people, of the Giron, and of their history. She told Aaron that the Giron were one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, their culture steeped in honor, tradition, and respect for all life. She spoke of a time long ago when the Giron had been a warring people, but after centuries of conflict, they had chosen a path of peace. It was a path that had not been easy to follow, but one they had committed to wholeheartedly. The Giron were not always as you see us now, Zara explained. We once lived as conquerors, believing that strength and power were the only ways to survive. But over time we realized that true strength lies in understanding others, in forging connections that transcend the surface of our differences. Aaron listened intently, feeling a sense of awe for the people she described. Her voice, so calm and assured, spoke of a history much older and wiser than his own. It was a history filled with pain, growth, and ultimately, peace. But, Zara continued, our path to peace has not been without sacrifices. There are those who still wish for power, for control, and they challenge our way of life. That is why alliances, like the one you and I are building, are important. The bond between our species will be tested, but it will also be our greatest strength. Aaron glanced at her, trying to make sense of what she was saying. Was she really suggesting that his joke had some deeper significance? That his role in all this wasn't just a mistake, but something more? It was hard to believe, but the sincerity in her eyes made him want to trust her words. I don't know if I'm ready for all this, Aaron admitted, his voice unsure. I'm just a soldier. I've never been part of something like this. Zara smiled, a small but knowing smile. None of us are ready for the changes that life brings. But sometimes, Aaron, it is the unexpected things, the things that catch us off guard, that shape us into who we are meant to become. As they continued walking, Aaron felt a sense of unease begin to shift into something else. It wasn't clarity, not yet. But it was a feeling that, perhaps, he wasn't as out of place in this world as he had thought. Maybe, just maybe, there was more to this than a simple misunderstanding. Maybe it was a chance for something greater. Taki came in. Their walk ended at the balcony overlooking the planet below. The lights of the alien city shimmered in the distance, and Aaron found himself staring out at the vast expanse, the weight of everything that had happened settling into him. For the first time, he wasn't sure if he was just a soldier following orders. Maybe he was something more. Maybe his role in this was only just beginning. Zara stood beside him, her gaze far more thoughtful than it had been before. The offer you made, she said quietly, may have seemed like a joke to you, but to me, it is the beginning of something important for both of us. Aaron turned to her, a sense of realization creeping in. This was bigger than him. It was bigger than any of them. The future of their species could very well be shaped by a single moment of miscommunication. He wasn't sure where this would lead, but as he stood there with Zara, looking out over the unknown, he felt a sense of possibility that he had never known before. Maybe it wasn't a joke after all. Maybe, for once, he was part of something that mattered. Days passed after Aaron's conversation with Zara. He couldn't shake the feeling that his world had shifted in ways he couldn't fully understand. Since that fateful moment when he jokingly proposed to Zara, everything felt different. He kept replaying her calm, serious response in his mind. There was a part of him that still couldn't quite grasp what had happened. But another part, a part he was slowly coming to terms with, was beginning to see the truth in Zara's words. The next time they met, it was in a more formal setting, a room where human and Geron representatives had gathered to discuss matters of mutual interest. As he walked into the room, Aaron found himself searching for Zara among the crowd. When his eyes met hers, he felt a strange mix of nervousness and curiosity. What was he doing here? Really? Was he part of this mission? Or was this all just a misunderstanding that had snowballed into something he couldn't escape? Zara's gaze softened when she saw him, and she approached him with a calm smile. Aaron, she said, I hope you're ready to continue the conversation we started. Aaron nodded slowly. I'm still not sure what to make of everything, but yeah.
I guess I'm ready to see where this goes. The room was filled with representatives from both sides, and the discussions had already begun.
But Aaron wasn't paying attention to the talks. His mind kept drifting back to Zara's words. The Geron had once been a warlike people, but now they had embraced peace. Zara had told him about their history, and now, more than ever, Aaron felt an obligation to learn more. It was his chance to understand Zara, to understand her people, and maybe, in some small way, to understand himself. As the talks continued, Aaron couldn't help but notice how different the Zaran were. They carried themselves with a sense of purpose, their movements measured and deliberate. It wasn't just their appearance that set them apart, though. It was their way of thinking, their ability to look past the surface of things. The humans in the room, including Aaron, were all preoccupied with surface-level concerns, trade agreements, territorial rights, military strategies. But Zara and the Zaran seemed to approach everything with a long-term view, as if every decision they made was part of something much bigger than the immediate circumstances. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the meeting adjourned. The delegates began to file out of the room, but Zara remained. She looked over at Aaron and motioned for him to come closer. "I think it's time we spoke further," she said. There was no hesitation in her voice, no doubt. It was as if she knew this conversation needed to happen. Aaron followed her to a quieter area of the facility. The corridor was less crowded, and they stood by a large window that overlooked the city. Zara turned to face him. "You've been quiet during the discussions," she said, her voice gentle but probing. "Is there something on your mind?" Aaron looked out the window, watching the lights of the city blink in the distance. He didn't want to admit it, but he was beginning to feel out of place. He had always been a soldier, trained for action, for strategy. But now he was in the middle of something far bigger than anything he had ever experienced. The weight of it all was beginning to settle on his shoulders. "I'm just trying to figure out where I fit into all of this," he said. "I don't have the same perspective that you do. I've spent my life learning to follow orders, to focus on what's in front of me. But you seem to see everything in a much bigger way."
Zara smiled softly. "It's not about seeing more, Aaron.
It's about understanding the connections that exist between all things. Every choice we make, every action we take, it's all interconnected. You're right to say that you focus on what's in front of you. But sometimes the bigger picture reveals itself when we stop and consider the long-term consequences." Aaron frowned. "I've always believed that focusing on the present is the only way to survive. In my world, the future isn't guaranteed. You focus on what's in front of you, because that's the only thing you can control."
Zara nodded slowly, and that's understandable.
In your world, it's survival that matters most. But the Zaran have learned that survival isn't just about the present. It's about the future, too. We've learned that the choices we make today will echo through the generations. That's why we strive for peace. Because peace is the only way to ensure a future worth living for. Aaron didn't know how to respond. He wasn't used to thinking about the long-term consequences of his actions. The idea that peace could be the key to ensuring a better future was a foreign concept to him. He had always believed that strength and power were the ways to secure the future, not peace.
"But how do you know peace will work?" he asked, his voice almost desperate. "What if it doesn't?"
What if all of this, the alliances, the peace talks, it's all just a fantasy? Zara's gaze softened, and she stepped closer to him. It's a fear that many share. But it's important to remember that peace doesn't happen by waiting for it. It happens when we actively choose it, when we choose to see beyond our differences and find common ground. Aaron stood in silence, absorbing her words. It wasn't easy to accept the idea of peace as the foundation of the future. He had been trained to fight, to protect, to win. Peace wasn't something that had ever been part of his training, and it felt strange to hear someone like Zara speak so confidently about it.
"But why me?" Aaron finally asked.
Why did you accept my offer? I didn't know what it meant, but you did."
You saw something in that moment. What was it? Zara looked at him for a long moment, as if considering her words carefully. "I accepted because, in your offer, I saw the possibility of something new. You didn't ask for anything. You didn't demand anything. You simply made a gesture, an offer. And that, to me, is the beginning of something important." Aaron shook his head, still unsure of how to process her words. "I don't know if I'm ready for all of this." I'm not like you.
I don't have the answers. You don't need to have the answers, Aaron, Zara said gently.
None of us do. But sometimes the first step toward finding those answers is simply being willing to take that step. And that's all you've done. You've taken the first step. Aaron stood there, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over him. It wasn't that he had all the answers now, but something about Zara's words made him realize that it was okay not to have everything figured out. Maybe that was the first step, accepting that there was a bigger picture, something beyond the battles he had fought, beyond the orders he had followed. For the first time in a long time, Aaron felt a sense of hope. Maybe peace was possible. Maybe, just maybe, he could be a part of that change. Zara placed a hand on his shoulder, offering a silent gesture of encouragement. They stood together in the quiet hallway, looking out at the distant city, both of them contemplating what the future might hold. As the days went by, the tension that had once defined Aaron's relationship with Zara began to fade. The more they spoke, the more he came to understand that this wasn't just about a joke gone wrong. Something deeper was unfolding. He still didn't fully grasp the importance of the connection between them, but he couldn't deny that the universe felt a little smaller, a little more connected. The peace talks were continuing in full swing. The human delegation in the Jaran had come to an understanding on several issues, but Aaron's mind wasn't focused on the details of trade agreements or military strategies. Instead, it was on Zara, the woman who had once been a symbol of distant, unapproachable power, but who now seemed so much more human to him. Aaron had never been one for diplomacy, but Zara had begun to show him what it meant. It wasn't just about signing agreements or making deals. It was about seeing the value in every decision, in every connection made. Every word spoken had weight, and every choice they made together could shape the future for both species. It was a responsibility Aaron had never considered before, but now he found himself drawn into it. One evening, after a long day of talks, Aaron found himself walking alone through the corridors of the Jaran embassy. The weight of the day was heavy on his shoulders, and his thoughts were still filled with the discussions that had taken place. He'd been struggling with a feeling of uncertainty. Uncertainty about his place in all of this. Uncertainty about his future. As he walked, he found himself standing outside a large observation deck. The view of the planet below was breathtaking, the lights of the city flickering like stars in the distance. It was a moment of peace in the chaos of everything that had happened. For a moment, Aaron let himself breathe. A soft voice broke through his thoughts.
Beautiful, isn't it?
He turned to see Zara standing behind him. Her expression was calm, but there was a warmth in her eyes that he hadn't seen before. It wasn't the same cool, calculating demeanor she had shown at their first meeting. Now, she seemed more human, more real.
Yeah, Aaron said quietly. It's hard to believe this is all real sometimes.
I've been caught up in everything, and I haven't had time to really think about it. But when you stop and look at it, it's amazing.
Zara nodded, stepping closer to him. The universe is vast, Aaron. There's so much out there, so much to discover. But sometimes, it's easy to forget that we're all connected. Each of us, no matter where we come from, plays a part in the grand tapestry of existence. I never thought about it that way. I've always been focused on the here and now. But now, I can't help but wonder what kind of future we're building. Zara smiled, her gaze turning toward the horizon. That's the question, isn't it? What kind of future will we build together? It's not something that happens by chance. It happens because we choose to make it happen. Aaron's thoughts were racing. He had always been the type of person to focus on the immediate future, the next mission, the next assignment. He hadn't thought about the long-term implications of his actions, of his choices. But now, standing here with Zara, looking out over a distant world, he felt a sense of responsibility settle in his chest. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about everyone. It was about the future of humanity, the future of the Jaran, and the future of every species that might come into contact with them. He turned to Zara. I don't know if I'm ready for this. I've been a soldier all my life.
I've always followed orders. But now, I'm starting to see that it's not enough to just follow orders.
We need to make our own choices. We need to lead.
Zara looked at him, her expression thoughtful. You've always had the ability to lead, Aaron. It's not about rank or position. It's about understanding what needs to be done and having the courage to do it. Aaron nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. But what if I make the wrong choice? What if I lead us in the wrong direction? Zara's gaze softened.
There's always a risk, Aaron. No decision is without its challenges.
But it's through those challenges that we grow. We can't let fear of making a mistake stop us from acting. The future isn't written yet. It's up to us to decide how it unfolds. Her words resonated deep within him. He had always feared failure, had always been taught that mistakes were to be avoided at all costs. But now, he realized that mistakes weren't the end. They were just part of the journey. It was what you did after the mistake that mattered. It was about learning, adapting, and continuing to move forward. I want to be part of this, Aaron said, his voice steady. I want to help build that future. I don't know what it will look like yet, but I'm ready to find out. Zara smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes. I knew you would come to that conclusion. You've already taken the first step, Aaron, and that's the hardest part. They stood together, side by side, looking out at the vast world below. For the first time since he had arrived on this strange planet, Aaron felt a sense of peace settle in his chest. There was still uncertainty, still fear about what the future might hold. But he no longer felt like he was standing alone. You know, Aaron said after a moment, his voice light, I never thought I'd be here, standing next to an alien, trying to figure out what kind of future we're going to have together. It's strange, but somehow it feels right. Zara chuckled softly. The universe has a way of bringing us to places we never expected. And sometimes those places are exactly where we're meant to be. The moment felt timeless, as if nothing in the universe could disturb the calm they had found together. In that quiet space, Aaron realized that he wasn't just part of a mission anymore. He was part of something much larger, something bigger than himself, bigger than the human race even. He was part of an intergalactic future that was still taking shape, and he had the power to help guide it in the right direction. As they stood together, a faint hum filled the air, a soft reminder that their journey was far from over. But this time, Aaron was ready. He wasn't just going to follow orders. He was going to lead. And he was going to make sure that whatever future they created, it was one that would benefit everyone. Human, Jaron, and all the beings in between. The stars in the sky seemed to shine a little brighter as they looked toward the future, knowing that the path ahead was theirs to walk together.